Stand by, stand by. Switching from human mode to dad mode. Initializing sequence. In 3, 2, 1. This is Dad Mode, the podcast where we navigate the chaotic realms of parenting, gaming, content creation, work, and hell, just life in general. We're diving into the challenges of raising kids in the digital age, from social media madness to navigating the gaming landscape. We're talking about it all, especially from a dad's perspective. Whether it's conquering the latest game, creating content that's more than just a hobby, or just trying to keep up with the ever-changing tech landscape, we're right there with you. We want to help you navigate this wild journey of parenthood and modern life, from balancing family time to managing your career and still squeezing in some gaming and content creation. It's all about fun, some dad wisdom, and a whole lot of dad mode. Now your hosts, Bearded Nova and Moorph.
Okay, we're back again this week, but we're going to spin it around. Last week, or a little while ago, Moorph, you did talk to me. This time, I want to ask you similar questions to what you asked me with content creation journeys. Like, where did you start is the best way to start off, I guess.
So I got started doing content on Twitch. It was during the pandemic, as a lot of people did. A buddy and I were gaming all night, and we're, I don't know, maybe drinking a lot, and we're thinking we're really funny. And we're like, we're hilarious. We got to do this on Twitch. And then I'm like, what's Twitch? Because I don't go and watch it usually. But we got on there, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun right from the start, and that's how I got started.
I think learning everything around Twitch is also that excitement. I mean, I still get really excited when it comes to doing stuff. No shit. I was out of shop the other day and I saw a camera for sale that was used, but it was like a really good price. And I'm like, I don't need it, but possibly, where could I do this? It's an evolving journey, I guess, with seeing your progression from start to now. Like, do you see that? Like, looking back to how your first bits of content were compared to where they are now?
Yeah. For me personally, like I think I had a couple of my very first streams, and then I deleted them immediately once I realized I still had them, because it's embarrassing. But like, from that time when you start and you don't know what you're doing, I wasn't. Yes, I've spoken to groups before, but like, it was another medium that I wasn't comfortable with, so I could tell I was a little bit shy. Yeah. The quality of the stream was garbage. Yeah. And then I flash forward to today, where I'm very comfortable talking, in front of the camera, and keeping a conversation going. And the quality is better than it was. But yeah, so it's interesting to see how I've changed, but I will say that I feel like at some point, in learning how to stream, you hit a point where it's good, and like, it's really small tweaks from then. Like, I don't feel I've changed that much in the last year. Like, I feel like I hit a point where I'm like, I feel very comfortable, and I like the way it looks. I like the way things come out.
It's all fine tuning. Where you like, it's all fine tuning. Where you're like looking at your camera, and you're like, if I just change that exposure down one, let's just see what that looks like. And it's
exactly
tiny changes.
Like, when you're setting up lighting, you want to have good front lighting, and you want to have something in the back that kind of separates you from the background. And so I'm like, okay, cool, a light. And now I'm like looking at the recording right now, and I'm like, okay, it's a bit too much glare, and like the two different color lights, I don't like the way they're like, it's small things that maybe people don't notice, but I think at some point everybody kind of hits the same level, and now you have to find a way to differentiate yourself a little bit, so you want to focus on those details.
I've been even doing this podcast because I know my background's changed slightly with this house, because I got through that stage where I just wanted to rearrange things the other week. But even still, week by week, I've slightly adjusted my lights to some way, just trying something else. Because I look at people on that are probably the same for you. You look at people on TikTok or whatever, and you see their setup or their lighting. You're like, how do they do that? You know, there's Night Owl, UK creator. He does phenomenal videography. But you see his room. His room's no deeper than what mine is. But to me, right. I'm like, how the hell does he get that background so dark?
Yeah. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like that's. Do you find yourself looking at other creators at times just going, I just kind of want to take a little bit of, try and figure out what they've done?
Yeah, I'm not wanting to. I have. I steal as much as I can. And by the way, Night Owl, if you're listening, we'd love to have you on the podcast. Anyway, so absolutely. And obviously, I think myself, just like with a lot of streamers, imagine first person we saw was Harris Heller.
Yes.
Yes. And you're looking at the quality of his video, of his lighting, of everything.
Yeah.
And, it's like, how do I do that?
Yeah.
And you like the elements of it. And then you see somebody else, you kind of want to get elements of it. Like even with my own stream now, I'd love to have the podcast where like the camera is in such a position that you see the desk in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Where the camera's a little lower and you see the desk, and so it looks clean versus the angle that the camera's at now, which means nothing to everyone listening to this. But just go to our TikTok or our YouTube, shameless plug, and check those out. You'll see what I'm talking about.
We use expensive cameras to make shorts.
Right. So it's like figuring out the angles you want, and you learn all this as you're going on, and you start figuring out what you want to do. And I think with everybody, like you start emulating somebody. And then you do this on and on and on. And then eventually you start to figure out what your own style is, what works best for you in the space that you have. And then you kind of tune it until you get to that point where like, okay, this works really good for me in my space.
Did you find, I guess, with like you said, finding that style and you mimicking it first, microphones for me was a massive one. And it wasn't the microphone to use as such. It was more so I was looking, I think we've all done it. You jump on YouTube, you look up how to set up an EQ, and then you see someone else's EQ, and you're like, that's going to work for me. It's the normal cut the low bass, up in the mids, a little bit low, then drop off again. That's what nearly everyone, just the basic curve that nearly every streamer starts off with.
Yeah.
I've realized recently that's not for my voice. Like, I've got to adjust that again.
Yeah. Truthfully, I've never got too much into audio balancing. I do it, but I've never dug into it the same way I have with like lighting and video, because there are elements to it that can be pretty complicated, I think, and getting what sounds right. Because like I remember listening to an audio engineer on YouTube who was saying, "You hear how muddy it is?" And I'm like, "No, like I don't hear what you're hearing, man."
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Like, I like my voice to be a little on the deeper side because I think it sounds better.
Yes.
On there.
Yes.
When you're listening to it, but like finding that point where it's like it goes from being cloudy or muddy, I guess as the guy was saying, to like a good lower volume
mumbling mess.
I struggle with it.
Yeah.
But I will say audio is super important. I've argued with this for years with people that audio is more important than video because it's what your brain processes first.
So you're not necessarily, in terms of watching the stream, a lot of people ain't directly watching the stream, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Most of the time it's on a second monitor or it's on their phone. They might be working, they could be doing something completely else, and it's a background. It's not the latest episode of, Law and Order or Suits or something where you're trying to sit down on TV and watch it at a set time or something like that, and you've got your attention on it. It's streams are usually a second. It's a background thing.
Yeah.
So, I find that audio is way more important than, especially when you're this tiny little box in the corner.
Yeah.
To be honest, most streamers starting out, that's, you're not doing the just chatting. You're streaming gameplay with your little head in the corner somewhere. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So for people listening, I'm curious what you guys think. Do you think audio is more important than video, or vice versa, and why? But no, I agree with you that the audio is definitely more important. I know that I have people in the community for my Twitch stream who only listen while they're at work and listen while they're at work.
Oh, I do.
So it's important.
I chime in every so often and just go, hey, you're too loud. That's too quiet, or vice versa. Like, I'm going to tell you what I'm hearing right now.
I'm sure you've been to streams that like there's something wrong with it. For me, if the video is a little bit shitty, but the audio is good, I'm more apt to listen or stay on there versus if it's opposite.
Oh yeah. That's audio is a killer for me when it comes to people's streams. If I don't like what I'm hearing, I'm far more out of it than what I'm actually seeing on the stream. Going back to a little bit of the start, what were the biggest hurdles for you, I guess?
I mean, there were a lot of learning curves. If you're streaming or podcasting or making videos, whatever it is you're doing to create content, you have to learn the tools, and there's a lot of tools to learn. And you need to understand like how to get people to your stream or listen to your podcast or whatever. But I think for me, the biggest hurdle was time management. I know we've talked about that a lot, but it's because it's such a big thing. You know, when I first started, I told, my wife, hey, I'm going to go stream. She's like, oh, okay, whatever. So I do it. And then
they don't understand what it is.
Right. And then 4 days a week. Yeah. 5 days a week. She's like, wait, what are you doing? Like, where's all this time going?
Yes.
And then you get into it, whatever kind of content it is you're doing. And then you realize that, I have a problem here. I've got to balance things a lot better. And you kind of balancing between what keeps your job happy, what keeps your family happy, and what does that mean you have left to do for this hobby that you're really into? And so for me, it was definitely time management. And I do think that I got a benefit because I started during the pandemic and I was home all of the time. Yeah. So I could come out before work and do stuff. If I was on lunch, I could do stuff. Right after work, before I went and made dinner, I could do stuff. You know what I mean? So I had all these pockets during the day to just
but that could be a detriment too. That ruins your time management because that's not, you get back to post-COVID world where you're out and about doing things. That time quickly disappears.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, whether a little bit.
I worked from home from March 2020 until full-time until June of 2023.
I was going to say last year.
So I was able to I had all that time. I could do stuff. And, that's why I was able to get a lot out. People are like, I love your work ethic. How much you get done? I'm like, because it's all I do. And I'm working from home, still doing my job. If anyone from my job is listening. But when I knew I was going to go back to work 3 or 4 days a week, I started to ramp it down because I'm like, I can't keep up this same amount of output once I'm back in work because I'm going to lose, the hour before work, the hour after work, and the hour during lunch. So there's 3 hours a day at least that I'm going to lose from creating content. That's a lot of time if you have videos to edit and stuff. So I tried to ramp it down and to a point that I knew that would work for me with my new schedule.
That's fair. Was there a particular type of content that you cherished more? Because obviously when you're doing this content journey, you experiment, you try, whether it just be game genres, but you do try different styles, I guess.
Yeah. I started off as a gamer. Yeah. Just on Twitch like everybody else does. And I'm not good at a lot of games because there's a lot I just don't like, and I'm not good. Let's be honest about that for a moment. And then I started to get into teaching people stuff, and that seemed to work well, and I enjoy doing that. But it gets boring, and repetitive. I wanted to change things up.
You're repetitive. I guess would be
Very, very repetitive. Now, anyone knows, like, I have elevated media, which I don't do as much with it now, but I had classes of where I was mentoring people on how to be a better content creator.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, pick a niche and stick with your niche, because people need to identify who you are with this thing, and then you can branch out. And that's what I did. I did exactly what I said to that I told people to do. But 3 years of doing it, I got bored. Now, I think if your niche is something else like gaming or like a genre of games, I feel like that'd be a lot better. But my niche was very limiting.
I would say it's exactly the same, whether it is games or not, because realistically, when you're a gamer and streamer, you can't be a variety streamer such quickly, especially starting out, because you're building a community. Most of your viewers are coming for that set game that you're playing or whatever it is. So you're kind of stuck playing it. And we know creators that are stuck playing particular games, and that's all they play basically. That's all their content is, because that's where they're stuck at the moment. And once you get to a threshold, then you can branch out. You can play whatever you want, but it takes a while to get there, I guess. And it's the same with, like, no different than what you were doing. You're doing the same thing over and over again. It'd be just the same if you had to play the same game over and over again. Eventually, you get burnt out. I mean, I know there's a couple of creators I still watch that are massive on Twitch, and that they only played set games. Yeah, look at Dr. Disrespect, I guess, would be a great example of this. PUBG, Warzone, COD, etc. But I've seen him play golf. You know what I mean? Like, he's at that size now that he can just quickly venture over, and people still watch him play that.
Right. It's like people that only do COD or only do Fortnite. Their audience is like it until the audience starts to fall out of love with it. The game gets unpopular. So I'll say one thing is, gaming never really worked for me before, because I was known for the one thing as I wanted. But now I mainly, if I do anything gaming, or I'm just bullshitting with people in the community when I stream, and that seems to slowly be catching some interest, because people enjoy coming and making fun of me gaming, which is fine, I guess. But like, I think of our friend of the show, Daniel. He always made quality content on TikTok.
Amazing.
And then
content.
he got into Cyberpunk, and he blew the fuck up.
Yeah.
And then he's like, we're talking, and he's like, well, what should I do next? And I'm like, well, try, because I don't want to do that forever. I want to get into other stuff. So I'm like, well, just do a few, but stick with it. And now it's interesting. So he does game reviews in the same exact style, very similar style to his Cyberpunk videos. It looks the same guy, same energy, but they do a third of the visibility or the views that his Cyberpunk ones do, even though it's just as good. So he'll release a video. Not for people that don't get this, like me, it sounds like he shouldn't complain, but he'll get 10,000 views on a gaming review video.
Yeah.
The very next day, he'll get 70,000 views on a Cyberpunk video. The next day, 10,000 views on a gaming review video. So it's interesting. Like, your core is this, right? But people are like, so when you do this other thing, they're like, I don't like it as much, even though it's the same thing, really.
It's around game reviews. My 2 cents on that. Mainstream games, don't bother. To be honest, don't. If you're a small creator, most people ain't going to want your opinion on a mainstream game, because most people are going to test it out themselves or follow someone else, or etc. etc. Go indie. It sounds weird, but if you pick some really niche indie games that that not many people are going to do a review on, and it might, even though it might not have a massive player base, and I just went through my head at one stage, I could do a review on YouTube for a mod of a game, or an indie game that I played, and knowing that there's probably only going to be 4 videos of other people reviewing it. So if I put mine out there, anyone that comes across that game that just wants to know what the game is, they're going to find your content because you're picking something that's very small base. It doesn't mean you have to focus on that game, but you've made a content for something that has a small base that doesn't have much attention. So when someone does get attention to it, it's going to funnel to you.
Yeah.
I think back to the AI auto camera switching software that I found that I used 2 streams or something. But I figured out how to use it with Streamlabs. So I made a video for YouTube on how to make it work for Streamlabs because the creator actually said Streamlabs isn't supported. And that video is still getting views because there's only a handful of people that looked at that software at the time. I'm on the website for that software. The creator saw the video and put it on the website going, oh, thank you so much, this creator. And it's on there. This is how to get around it. Go check out his video. And it's still getting videos because not many people have done content. And I was, there was me on the webpage. Right underneath me was Epos Vox. That was huge to me to be, on the same webpage next to him.
Yep. I want to mention something about strategy real quick, but I will say the closest I ever got to something like that was I released a video reviewing the Go XLR several years ago. Like the same day that Harris Heller happened to release one. Oh. And like for 2 days, or no, not 2 days, for one day, we were right there. And then his community saw it and he just blew past it. But yeah, it was for a whole week, like if you Google Go XLR tutorial or whatever, we were both on like the same page at least.
Oh, great.
But
he had no clue who you were or what you were doing. But the opposite way is fantastic.
Yeah, but the bad thing is, it was one of the first videos I did on YouTube. It was terrible. It's terrible, terrible.
That was the same for that tutorial.
I've actually since gone in and hid some of the ones I've done. Some I remade completely, and some I re-edited to make them look better. Yeah. But yeah, oh my god. Anyway, but what I was going to mention is the point you were just saying about going indie games instead of mainstream games because get more attention, and that's actually a really good strategy for a lot of the things that you do in content creation. Bear with me for 30 seconds, people listening. So when you get in here, you could have a few different goals, but if one of your goals is to grow financially, grow the size of your platform and stuff, or get sponsors, things like that, focusing on smaller companies and smaller game shops is better than going big ones like Bearded Nova was saying, because those smaller companies, those smaller game shops, they're looking for all of the press that they can get, and when they notice that you're supporting their game or you're buying their product and talking about their product, they're very likely to want to work with you as they're trying to grow, because even if you don't have a big audience, at least somebody's doing something to help them out, right? Like a lot of the sponsors that I got during my busiest times on as a streamer came because I noticed a small company that just launched. I'm like, oh, it's a cool product. So I just talked the shit out of it about on stream or on TikTok, and then they reach out to me.
The one
that it works out really well.
The company that reminds me when you said that was Repurpose.io, because I came across that and I sent it to you going, hey, you should check this out. This is interesting.
Awesome.
And you went ham into it. Next thing you know, you're telling me you're doing content for it.
So I loved it. I made a couple of videos where this is really great. And then they reached out. Or sometimes you have to reach out to them too, and be persistent. And it doesn't hurt like making some content for free, essentially ahead of time, to show them that you're actually interested. And if you think, well, I'm not doing anything for free, the world doesn't always work that way. Sometimes you have to show a little bit before you can get something coming back to you.
I guess think of it as building a portfolio.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the best way to put it. That's how I did. All my success with gaming studios, I had more success with the smaller ones. So I can say that the more involvement I got with games, and there's one game I'm trying to think of called Tinkertown. It's great. It's an awesome game. It's a little isometric, kind of like Terraria, I guess, if you played that game where you're building stuff, but it's, pixelated graphics. When I got into contact with them, I said I was interested in the game. They gave me like three or four keys to begin with. I said, here you go. This is great to play with friends. Here's keys for your friends. So I was like, cool. Got a mate involved. Me and him played a lot. Gave it to another person. And then maybe 6 months later, they finally got out of early access and they went to 1.0 and launch. And I saw it pop up and I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. And I remember back in the other one, they said, if you ever want anything more, reach out. So I actually messaged the developer and said, hey, I've done stuff for your game before. I'm keen to really look at this game now that it's back, that it's final release, to see, I'll replay it from the start. And they said, yeah, that sounds great. Do you need anything from us? And I said, no, I don't. They said, well, here you go. They gave me 10 free keys. They said, there you go, give them to people. Do what you want with them. It was, I didn't get paid for it, but it helped build me because I was building a game that not many people knew of, or there was a niche group of people that loved that type of game. And at the same time, I was able to build it up for them, and it worked two ways. You know what I mean? It was a two-way street.
That's exactly how I approach things like that too, because realize, like, if you go the route of going to a smaller or newer company, they're not going to have huge budgets to give you tons and tons of money and stuff. And sometimes, the deal I worked out quite often with smaller companies was sometimes I would say, don't pay me, promote my posts or whatever it is I do for you, linking my name, because my theory was, as they grew in popularity and they're promoting my name, it promotes my brand. And that helps me a lot more than the $100 they're going to give me, know? I guess maybe depending on your financial situation, but for me, getting the brand promotion was better than a little bit of cash.
I got paid by Powwow Games, which did Stunfest, which is now Jumpfest. I talked about it when we talked last. And, I never said I did a stream across all their platforms, which was cool. Like, I thought that was a great thing. They did pay me to do this game. But the one thing they did that I didn't mention last week that I thought was phenomenal was they were owned by THQ Nordic. So when I was coming into stream their game for, the hour, 2 hours that it was, THQ Nordic actually did a post with my name and my channel on it to say, hey, this creator is going to be streaming this game. I thought that was amazing. To just one post from such a big company meant more to me than the 50 US or something I got paid for the hour.
Yeah, I agree. There's this, I won't name this company, but there was this company that had reached out to me a year ago, a game studio, and I did a one stream for them.
I remember.
And then I promoted it for them, and I think they did some promotion back for me, but I haven't really worked with them because, well, they probably won't listen to this, but truthfully, I didn't love the game. And they just reach out to me again on on Twitter. And it's like, hey, we want to know if you want to do a sponsored stream. And I'm like, okay. And you said sponsor, you're going to pay me up front this time. Yeah. We figure like they won't go away for a day to come back. Yeah, we'll pay you $20 for the stream. And I'm like, no, like, I don't want to be picky, but like, that just wasn't worth it for me because they weren't offering to promote me or anything. It's just, here's $20, stream for 2 hours. I'm like,
and you already had the game. You already had it was a free to play game, wasn't it? That
free to play game. So I don't know. So that's me saying, yeah, you want to be able, you have to take some hits as you're trying to grow, you know. But you also sometimes just think about, is it worth it for you? Like, you know what I mean? Is it worth it for you to do it? I don't mind $20 if you're going to do something else as well.
I will say, to new creators, don't discourage $20. Don't, if depending on what it is. I know a lot of $20.
What he's saying is more for just being an elitist.
$20 is $20. No. What I mean by that is more, there was a lot of games I've streamed. It was only for an hour. I might have done a 3-hour stream and there was days where I did this. I did a 3-hour stream, 3 games. Each game paid me $20. And I wasn't just paid $20. I was given the CD key to the game that was good for the final version. So to me, it wasn't $20. It was $20 plus I got a $30 game. Plus I got a $40 game. I got a $50 game. That then I could use if I really love that game. I could use that to make more, for future streams. And there was many games that I did use that, and there's still games in my Steam library that I haven't played in a while that I look at. I'm like, that was a really fun game that I got for free, and I should load that up right now and play it because that was just so much fun.
Yeah. I never got games because I wasn't gaming much.
You were in that scene.
Game studios. And I actually found it, thinking back, I found it hard to get sponsors when I was doing some things because of the kind of content that I had on Twitch. It was like, Razer would want to do something, or like a gaming company, and it's just like, but I'm not going to show your product. I'm not going to play your game. Like, it's just not what I do. And like I was talking with Damn Daniel, and the way his views would go up and down based on his niche. If I had guests, we're doing really well. If I'm gaming, we're doing crappy, so that's just how it went. So finding sponsors was challenging. So I would go for things like Visme or Repurpose.io or Mix It Up or Streamlabs, things like that worked with what I did.
That's what I was going to say. Pick a brands that support who you are and the type of content you create. As you said, you did a lot of the brands you worked with were around content creation, making things easier for content creators. And for myself, I did a lot of indie studios because I got into niche gaming, and I also pushed myself for a while as someone who played every type of game. I didn't play dead. It was any type of game. You had no clue what you were showing up to. I think I turned Wednesday streams into indie night. Basically, it's like, show up. We don't know what we're going to open up my inbox and see what CD key is, and we're just going to roll the dice, basically.
Yep.
And it was fun.
Yep. So like, as we're doing the podcast and we're looking to get, sponsorships to the podcast, now I'm finding this is a new challenge. It's exciting, but it's a new challenge because it's going to be audio. Like, one of my sponsors that still works with me on any video stuff I do, I was like, hey, well, we have the podcast. You guys want to sponsor that? Like, we'll sponsor you and you can do an audio ad, but we're not going to continue to do audio ads because our product needs to be seen. And I'm like, that makes sense. So it's like, now I'm trying to find, like, how do we
talk about,
like, who's going to work with us?
You know what?
Like, what would work for this format? I
thought about that one. We can talk about that one later because I'm like, you know what? We can actually use the podcast and that together. They're not seeing how this works together. This could work.
Right. They have clips.
Exactly.
And now this is going to be like behind the scenes for a minute, but like, I'm thinking like, maybe we could do this. Like, it'll be on the audio podcast. So everyone will hear it. But when we make a clip we could actually, as you're hearing about it.
You know what? That was so great to say, and I'm hoping your audio recorded it, but it muted for me for a second. It was like you were redacting on words. Like, you'd go, and then we'd beep, then we'd. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. I know we're getting close to the end there, but I wanted to bring up what, I guess, mistakes, you came across the time that you wish you could do differently. For other people that are looking to get in creation or are in creation that may not have come across these hurdles as such yet?
I think, but there are a lot of mistakes. Oh my God. I'll pick a couple. No, so one of the mistakes was not understanding exactly what I wanted to do and how long it would take me to do, so I could structure my time in a way that would have allowed me to continue going without it disrupting everything else in my life. Right. That was my mistake. It wasn't not a lack of understanding of my limits, but a lack of a proper balancing. Like, if I hadn't pissed off my family by going, 1,000 miles an hour early on, it probably would have been easier for me down the road.
Yeah.
And also, not not trying to collaborate or network with people for the first year and a half that I did this. I was just on my own. I didn't think to reach out to anybody. Once I started to reach out to people and work with people, I was like, this is so much better.
It's
so
fun.
much better.
It's fun, isn't it? Like I found that doing collabs with other people, even if you weren't on the same stream, there was, I know a future guest of the show that we're going to have on PS2. Him and I used to stream at the same time, but we just jump into a Discord together and play the same game, and we'd be on the same team. And it was great. Like, it's just some of my early TikTok clips is some of the stuff that we'd done together. And oddly enough, there was instant chemistry very quickly in our game. And like, didn't take long for us to just move, gel basically.
Yep.
And you find new things doing that, I guess. Like, there's things I learned from creators in collabs without even knowing it. Like, oh, I really like doing this type of content. I hate horror games, but I don't mind group horror games, if that makes sense, because it's a little bit more fun.
Yeah, we've done a Phasmo stream.
We've done a Phasmo stream, and I did a spat stream with another creator. Like, I've done a couple of them where I'm like, I hate horror games, but this is kind of fun when I'm doing it with other creators.
Yeah. Yep. Collaboration is such a big deal. And platforms like Twitch, and others, but Twitch makes it really easy now. You can both be live, and you hit a button and
join.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, we're going to use that future. We're going to use that setting in the future. Actually, when I'm thinking that's my plan.
Maybe by the time you guys hear this, when this gets released, we'll Bearded and I will start doing some dad mode streams, either like TikTok or Twitch or something.
Both. Who knows?
Both. We'll see. So yeah. By the way, go follow us on every platform. It's Dad Mode Podcast on every platform, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Twitch.
I'm just going to add that at the end of this. Like, that's a great tip for content creators: is get the same fucking handle across everything.
Yes. Remember when I rebranded last year when I rebranded?
Yeah.
Because it was I had Moorph games, blah blah blah. And I'm like, so I'm like, it's Moorph everywhere.
That was the great thing about Bearded Nova. It wasn't taken.
Right.
that's how I got that's how I took the name Bearded Nova, because it wasn't taken.
Having, like, people think about branding, and I talked about branding ad nauseum, previously, but your name is part of your brand. Like, massive. Not just that it has to be something that encapsulates who you are, gives people an idea of, like, if your personality or whatever, that's sponsorship safe, brand safe, because my original name of Morphine was not brand safe, and I was told that by multiple companies. But also, you want it to be consistent. You know how much easier it is for people to remember, it's Moorph on every platform, and then, like, even on graphics where you're showing your tag, you can just say it's Moorph on all of the platforms. It's just so much easier. When
you're doing a social pop-up on your Twitch, which, by the way, get one, do a social reel. Having the same name, just changing the logo is way more easier than changing the logo and the name every time. I know I've made these social pop-ups for people in the past, and they've given me their social handles, and I'm like, okay. And some of them are way longer than others, and it's interesting.
It is.
It's the best way to put it. It makes my life interesting. But thank you. Is there anything else you want to bring up before we wrap this up, I guess?
No, just if you want to get into content creation of any kind of content, just understand what you want to do and set a plan and some goals for yourself, and then work hard at it, because it takes a lot of work. But don't give up.
Reach out to people. Ask questions.
Yeah.
DM us. No, I'm on. I'll do. I'm
always willing to answer any questions about how to do different kind of content, or you guys have trouble with it. Just reach out to me, reach out to the show.
You've been listening to Dad Mode. Our passion is navigating this wild journey of parenthood and modern life. From balancing family time to managing your career and still squeezing in some gaming and content creation. And no matter what the women say, they will never be able to pry the controller out of our cold, dead hands. Anyway, we hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, find us on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Dad Mode Podcast. And we can be found on every podcast site at Dad Mode Podcast. Y'all be cool. See you next time.